welcome to everyone, and I'm deeply grateful to the organizers for inviting me. When I first asked as to what would be the theme and what should one speak on, I was relieved to hear that they said whatever you would like to speak on the Constitution. Because after the intensive 2-day experience you've gone through, I'd rather keep quiet and appear wise than speak on comparisons between the Australian and Indian Constitution and expose my weaknesses. So I'll take the safer course, as lawyers we are trained to do, and which is to tread on ground I'm familiar with, which is the Indian Constitution. Most of you would be going out into this world in a short time as lawyers, judges, etc. And the one thing which I want to first start with is that this concept of exchange is something which draws deeply from the Indian tradition also. Right from Upanishadic times, the concept of Vad, that is dialogue and debate, has been prevalent. What is called the Brahmodaya, where there would be constant exchanges of ideas, etc. So in that tradition, this exchange which is there is indeed something creditable and a continuation of our traditions. Using this occasion, I'd like to take and ask myself one question. What is it that permeates our Indian Constitution? And that's what we have been practicing with throughout in our 20 years. What do we understand and what we've read about? And the important thing here, which we have to keep in mind, and I'd like to quote on two people. One is Austin, the second is Gandhi, and finally also Rohit Dey, whose book I'd really recommend all of you to read, because it will show how the Indian common man used the Constitution regularly and fashioned out some of the great principles on the basis of which this Constitution today continues to be so much responsive and alive in this country. So as far as Austin is concerned, he points out that our Constitution is the world's longest democratic constitution, and it may be summarized as having 3 strands: protecting and enhancing national unity and integrity, establishing institutions and spirit of democracy, fostering a social revolution to better the lot of the mass of Indians. The Indian Constitution then is a document in which principles expressing general principles and humanitarian sentiments, vows of purpose, if you will, mingle with those embodying level-headed practicality and administrative details. The idealism that marked the Constitution was predominantly a product of social content of the independence movement, which in turn stemmed from awareness of the plight of the masses of Indians. And that is the most important part, that because it arose from the independence struggle and the great leaders who were there, what is the golden thread which permeates the Constitution is concern for the masses. And that is, as far as the masses and the people and how they use the Constitution was concerned, that is very well described very dramatically by Rohit Dey, that when the Constitution first came in, what happened. And he says, on the eve of the Indian independence was marked by joyous celebrations as thousands of ordinary Indians flooded the formerly inaccessible government buildings to witness the rituals of transfer of power. Cheering crowds occupied every inch of central government in Delhi and blocked the vice-regal cavalcade, forcing Jawaharlal Nehru to lean out from the Constituent Assembly terrace and cajole the crowds into letting the viceroy move. In Calcutta, boisterous crowds invaded the governor's palaces, jumped on the 4-poster beds, ran the bathtub faucets, and even knocked off the departing English governor's hat. The world had momentarily turned upside down. The people and the state had merged. Yet this moment was short-lived. As Nehru announced Indian independence, mounted policemen pushed back the crowds with sticks, and in the following week, the rituals of state took over. The people were put back in their place, permitted to emerge only when election was held, and so on. And therefore, now the process has to be the next step, which is how to make the democracy more participatory. So right to information, for example, is one legislation. And now on the anvil is things like the Grievance Redress Act, where citizens are going to have more of a role and hold the government more accountable on day-to-day grievances which are going to be there. And these acts are likely to be coming forward, where there would be penalties provided for officials who do not in a time-bound manner address grievances of citizens. So I think that is the process which this, and firmament which this Constitution is going through, and the courts have been remarkable citadels of promoting these values completely. And I'd like to finally end by one quote of Gandhi's, because whatever you do, and I think as far as the Constitution is concerned, and anything in life which one does, and in fact the Constitution permeates our lives, as even Rohit Dey's book would point out. And he says, Gandhi's famous talisman, which says that I will give you a talisman. Whenever you are in doubt or when the self becomes too much with you, apply the following test. Recall the face of the poorest and weakest man whom you have seen, and ask yourself if the step you contemplate is going to be of any use to him. Will he gain anything by it? Will it restore to him control over his own life and destiny? In other words, will it lead to Swaraj for the hungry and spiritually starving millions? Then you will find your doubts and yourself melting away. And this is what our Constitution represents and enables us to do, and this is what we should strive for. Thank you very much.